Welcome to a kind of year wrap-up video. I'm going to be talking about my best and worst fiction that I have read this year. I don't know if it's the most comprehensive of lists, but I went through my Goodreads and looked for everything that was 5 stars and then kind of whittled it down a little bit more for the books that were 5 stars I've read in the past year and that I still remember pretty well. And then for worst books, I also went through my Goodreads, and anything 2 stars and below, I made a list and then kind of went through and thought, which ones did I really not like? So we'll see how this goes and we'll jump right into that. A book that I found to be absolutely delightful has a bit of a fantasy element, and it is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, and I thought this was just delightful. It was kind of quirky and fun, a school of children with magical abilities, and the government worker who comes to observe and falls in love with them. And I just thought that it was delightful and clever all the way around. So this was really good. Another one that I thought was very clever and really fun was The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I loved this book. I just read right through it, really enjoyed it. My only downside on this one was that I read the second book and did not like it as much, but I thought this one was very clever and very fun, so I really liked The Inheritance Games. This one follows Avery Grams, who finds out that she has inherited everything from a mysterious billionaire, and the only catch is she has to live in his house for a year with his family, who's all angry at her, and she solves all these little mysteries to figure out what's going on and why she was given this whole fortune. So that one was really delightful as well. I really liked that one. And for a book that was maybe not quite as delightful as the first two, but was, I thought, really well done, I really liked A Good Neighborhood by Therese Ann Fowler. And I know that this book isn't for everyone, but I really liked it. It's a modern day Romeo-Juliet type thing where both sides are so involved in what they feel to be right that they don't care about their teenagers and what's going on in their lives. And this one, I feel like it was well done, showing both sides, and then as well using kind of a Greek chorus type element. The neighbors would chime in, and I thought that it was really well done. I liked that element, and as well as this is one of those books that made me just cry like a baby at the end of it, and I figure if it affected me that much emotionally, it was pretty good, and I do remember this one well. So yeah, that is one of the best ones that I've read this year. Also, on more meaningful, I really liked No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood. Now, I remember hating it the first half. I thought that I was gonna stop reading. It was just kind of like falling down a dark pit of just the internet and Twitter and just getting so sucked into it. And I felt kind of awful and I wanted to stop. But then halfway through, it flips over to her sister having a baby and all of these troubles that come up with that. And it turns into a really beautiful book. And I think the author was very skilled, because to pull me through those feelings, it was like she dragged me through hell to take me to heaven. And I thought that it was a really well done book that way. So definitely one of my better reads this year. I also really liked Patron Saints of Nothing by Randy Rebay, and this is kind of more young adult, and it follows a Filipino-American teenager, and he goes to visit his family in the Philippines and learns a lot about what has gone on with Duterte and the war on drugs in the Philippines while he investigates the death of his cousin. And so I thought that for a young adult book, this really handled difficult subjects well and helped inform me as the reader on a subject that I didn't know very well, and it was like very age appropriate for like a teenage kind of, you know, a little more black and white, and, you know, not maybe as deep as an adult book, but it was perfect, I think, for the audience, and was just very, very interesting and very heartfelt. So I did like this one a lot as well. I loved the book Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. This was a bank robbery gone wrong and a bunch of people being held hostage together, and it was just absolutely delightful. Like, just, I enjoyed every minute of reading it. I thought it was funny and at the same time kind of meaningful and sweet. Like, it was excellent. So I highly recommend that one as well. And those are some of the books that I really liked reading this past year. I don't think it's a super comprehensive list. I have a hard time kind of narrowing down what I liked, but these are a few that I really did enjoy this year. And now let's talk about a few of them that, while they might not be bad books, I don't want to be too negative, I just did not work for me. I did not enjoy them at all. So let's talk about the worst of. I read The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey, and this had a premise and a plot that I feel like should have been, if not the most like realistic or deep, at least really fun to read, because it had, you know, the husband was cheating on her with a clone of herself, and there was like murder, and just, it was, every twist and turn in this was just wild, and it should have been really fun. But for some reason, the writing for me, I have no idea how you could make such a wild and crazy plot kind of boring. And this was just a big disappointment for me, because plot-wise, I think this is a really good book, but just, or at least a really fun book, but just reading it, I had a hard time getting through it just because it was written a little too dry, I guess. I wasn't a huge fan of it. Another one that I didn't really think worked for me was Darling Rose Gold by Stephanie Robel. Now, this is kind of based on a real life story, and this is talking about Rose Gold Watts and her mother, who basically pretended that her daughter was sick so that she could get special favors. It was a case of like Munchausen's by proxy. Now, this just, it didn't work for me, because I feel like it turned this into a bit of a psychological thriller, and I feel like it's a real life case that was highly publicized, and it just felt kind of in poor taste to me. So I did not really enjoy how this came about, but I was interested in reading it because I do remember reading about that case, and I was interested to get a little more closure maybe, and instead it was a psychological thriller. So I think it just was not what I was hoping for for this kind of book. And for one that I just thought was kind of garbage, I read As Old as Time by Liz Braswell, and this is part of a whole series of books where they rewrite Disney movies into full novels. And I know it's for children, but my children deserve better written books than this. Like, it's just really poorly written, just kind of like a, not to say all fan fiction is this poorly written, but it just kind of like, it seemed like very amateur and very much a fan kind of book. And it did not work for me in the slightest. Plot-wise, it wasn't that bad. I mean, it mostly follows the movie, just kind of twists it. Like, what if Belle's mother was the one who cursed the beast? Like, I get that. It just, the writing was terrible. So don't recommend this one or any of the series. I haven't read any of the rest of the series, but I am not going to go into it unless somebody really tells me one of them is extra good. And this last one that I didn't really like, it's not very fair of me because I really enjoyed it at the beginning. This was Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. Now, I really liked it. I really liked the tone. I was very excited about the plot. Like, just, it turned out really good. Like, at the beginning, just like, oh, going to this house and there's a secret, and very Jane Eyre kind of thing. And I really enjoyed that part. But then kind of the twist and the reveal of what it was, I was like, really? That was it? And then everything at the end was so rushed. I just was so disappointed because the setup was just really good for me, and I was very disappointed in how this turned out towards the end. But, you know, I got through it really fast. It was an enjoyable read. It just was such a disappointment. And those are my best and worst of fiction for the past year. So if you agree with me or disagree with me about any of these, please let me know, as well as please let me know any of your best or worst reads for 2021. I would love to hear any good new recommendations, and I will be back with another video about my best and worst nonfiction.